desire for learning, for self-improvement, for the knowledge and skills to achieve goals in life is a universal demand. Governments and businesses also understand that the education of their people is what makes their country and companies competitive. Education brings economic and commercial benefits. The work-based education and training market that we operate in has strong growth potential, and we have the opportunity to become a driving force of skills development in future. But this is complicated and a challenging time. Economies and businesses are recovering from a deep global downturn, and low economic growth is becoming the new norm. Demographic and technological change, global skills shortages, increasing labour migration, and the demand for transnational standards make the situation even more complex. Approximately 1 in 7 people today are migrants. 232 million people are international migrants, and 740 million have relocated within their own nation, often moving from rural to urban areas. From 1980 to 2010, foreign-born workers contributed 40% to labour force growth in advanced economies. And by 2030, Africa, India and other South Asian nations will have 60% share in global labour force growth. Migration corridors are becoming busier and busier as people look to improve their economic prospects. 12.2 million Mexicans have moved to America. 3.2 million Bangladeshis now live in India, and over 1 million Indians live in Bangladesh. The impact of population growth and demographic trends will dramatically shape the economic, social, and political conditions around the world. Over the past 50 years, the global economy has expanded sixfold, and the global population more than doubled. By 2030, the projected global labour force will be 3.5 billion, up from 2.9 billion today. Of that 2.9 billion, there are approximately 74 million young unemployed workers, and this figure is set to rise. Meanwhile, people are working longer. Globally, the number of over 60s is expected to more than double to exceed 2 billion by 2050. A core challenge over the next decade will be to attract and retain a skilled workforce. And this situation is exacerbated as companies will soon find themselves managing 4 generations of workers at once. And whilst people are looking for jobs in a global rather than local market, they're also switching careers more frequently. Because of technology, industry now moves at an unrecognisable pace, and with it the workforce is transforming. In the US, almost 47% of jobs could be computerised within 1 or 2 decades. The skills required are constantly evolving. The way we work is evolving too, with 1.3 billion virtual workers across the globe in 2015. There's even more of a need for digital credentialing and the verification of skills. As more and more people freelance, the global platforms that connect them to clients are also facing problems. Freelancers in countries where wages are higher must compete against those in parts of the world where the cost of living is much lower. Meanwhile, young people remain disproportionately affected by the changing jobs market. More than half of the Eurozone's young workers are in temporary jobs, moving from one short-lived contract to the next. This has resulted in an older generation of highly protected permanent employees on one side and a younger generation forced to settle for insecure jobs on the other. The OECD warns these economies are also storing up future skills shortages and productivity problems, since employers are far less likely to provide training to young temporary workers. And speaking of skill gaps, since 2012, the UK's talent mismatch level, the gap between the skills people can offer and those employers are looking for, has increased every year. The UK now has a talent mismatch score of 9.7 out of 10, amongst the worst in Europe according to the Hayes Global Skills Index of 2015. To make matters worse, in 2013, a total of 1.4 million employees were deemed not to be fully proficient in their job roles, equating to 5.2% of the total UK workforce. Globally, by 2020, there's predicted to be a shortage of 40 million high-skilled workers and a potential surplus of 90 million low-skilled workers. In developing economies, by 2030, there's a predicted shortage of 45 million workers qualified to work in labour-intensive manufacturing and service sectors. If trends persist, developed economies will have far too few workers with the skills needed to drive high productivity of economies, and not enough job opportunities for low-skilled workers. And developing economies won't have enough medium-skilled workers to fuel further growth of labour-intensive sectors, and far too few workers will be able to escape low productivity, low-income work because of their lack of skills. And on top of that, by 2018, about 215 million people worldwide are expected to be unemployed. With all of this in mind, one thing is clear: our purpose is as essential now as it was 138 years ago. Through everything we do, the Sitting Gills Group enables people and organisations to develop their skills for personal and economic growth, helping people into a job, develop on the job, and move into the next job. In an increasingly complex and diverse world, we must keep innovating, changing and growing to deliver our purpose long into the future.